Most INFJ videos focus on surface traits like introversion or intuition, but they miss the deeper psychological tells that can't be faked. If you've ever felt like you were dropped off on the wrong planet, there's a reason for that. These aren't weaknesses or quirks you need to fix. They're strategic advantages that set you apart from the majority of the population. Today, we're diving into 5 missed traits that prove you're a true INFJ. The kind of insights that go beyond what most people understand about this personality type. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you're looking for a deeper understanding of yourself and your INFJ personality, browse our favorite INFJ products in the description, and click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. Trait 1. You experience emotional overflow, not just sensitivity. Everyone talks about INFJs being sensitive, but that word doesn't capture what's actually happening in your nervous system. You don't just feel emotions more deeply than others. You experience what I call emotional overflow, where emotions literally spill over into your physical body and energy systems. The difference between sensitivity and overflow is crucial. Sensitive people might feel hurt by criticism or moved by a sad movie. INFJs absorb emotional data from everyone around them until it becomes part of their internal landscape. You walk into a room and immediately download the emotional state of every person present, whether you want to or not. This isn't metaphorical. Research shows that INFJs have heightened mirror neuron activity, meaning your brain literally mirrors the emotional patterns of others. When someone near you feels anxious, your nervous system starts producing stress hormones. When they're excited, your energy shifts to match theirs. You're not choosing to be empathetic. Your brain is automatically processing emotional information at a level most people can't comprehend. This creates physical symptoms that other personality types rarely experience. You might feel nauseous after being around negative people. You could get headaches in crowded spaces, or feel completely drained after social interactions that others found energizing. Your body is processing emotional data like a computer processing massive files, and it takes actual energy to do that work. The isolation that follows isn't antisocial behavior. It's protection. You need time alone not because you don't like people, but because you need to discharge all the emotional information you've absorbed. Think of it like a sponge that needs to be wrung out. Without that processing time, you'll experience emotional overflow where you can't distinguish between your feelings and everyone else's. This trait manifests differently in work environments compared to personal relationships. At work, you might find yourself avoiding the break room because you can feel the frustration of the person who just got passed over for promotion, or the anxiety of someone dealing with family problems. In relationships, you might know your partner is upset before they do, which can create tension when you try to address problems they haven't even recognized yet. Most people can compartmentalize emotions. They feel something, process it, and move on. INFJs carry emotional residue from every interaction. That comment your coworker made 3 days ago? You're still processing the underlying frustration they were feeling when they said it. That tense moment at the grocery store when the cashier was having a bad day? Your nervous system is still unwinding from absorbing their stress. This is why other people can't understand your need for recovery time after social events. They think you're being dramatic when you say you need 3 days to recover from a family gathering. They don't realize you spent the entire event unconsciously managing everyone else's emotional states while trying to maintain your own equilibrium. The key insight here is that emotional overflow isn't a bug in your system. It's a feature. This ability allows you to understand people at a level that creates genuine connection and insight. You can see through surface interactions to understand what people actually need. You can predict relationship problems before they explode, because you're tracking emotional patterns others miss entirely. When you understand that you're not just sensitive, but actually processing emotional data at a neurological level that differs from the majority of the population, everything starts to make sense. The exhaustion, the need for alone time, the way you seem to know things about people that they haven't told you. You're not broken or overly emotional. You're operating with enhanced emotional processing capabilities that most people don't possess. Trait 2. You demand purpose in everything. The second mistrait that proves you're a true INFJ is your inability to engage in activities without understanding their deeper purpose. This goes far beyond having goals or being motivated. You literally cannot function in environments where the why doesn't make sense to you. Most people can follow instructions, complete tasks, or participate in traditions without questioning the underlying logic. They accept that this is how things are done as sufficient justification for their time and energy. INFJs operate from a completely different framework. Every activity, every tradition, every workplace process gets filtered through the question, what's the actual point of this? This isn't intellectual curiosity. It's a fundamental need to see how individual actions connect to larger patterns and future outcomes. When you're asked to attend a meeting that could have been an email, you're not just annoyed by the inefficiency. You're genuinely confused about why intelligent people would choose to waste time when that energy could be directed towards solving actual problems. The trouble starts when you voice these observations. The moment you ask, what's the point of this tradition? Or, shouldn't we be working toward improving this system? You trigger defensive reactions in people who haven't questioned these things. They interpret your need for purpose as criticism of their choices, even when you're simply trying to understand the logic. This pattern shows up everywhere. At work, you might suggest streamlining a process that everyone knows is inefficient, only to face resistance from people who seem invested in maintaining dysfunction. In social situations, you might question why the group always meets at the same restaurant when half the people complain about it every time. In family dynamics, you might ask why everyone pretends to enjoy traditions that clearly stress everyone out. The pushback you receive isn't rational. People can't explain why your questions threaten them, so they resort to calling you difficult, negative, or someone who doesn't understand how things work. What they really mean is that your pattern recognition abilities are highlighting problems they'd prefer to ignore. This trait creates a specific type of workplace sabotage that most INFJs experience but don't recognize. When you consistently point out inefficiencies or suggest improvements, colleagues start to see you as a threat to the comfortable dysfunction they've adapted to. They may spread rumors about your attitude, exclude you from informal networks, or find ways to undermine your credibility. All because you asked legitimate questions about purpose and efficiency. The deeper issue is that most people operate on autopilot. They follow established patterns without examining whether those patterns serve any useful function. Your brain constantly scans for connections between current actions and future outcomes. You can see how today's inefficient meeting will compound into bigger problems next month. You can predict how ignoring this systemic issue will create crisis situations down the line. This future-focused thinking is what separates true INFJs from people who think they might be INFJs. If you can engage in meaningless busy work without feeling internal resistance, you're probably not an INFJ. If you can participate in traditions or follow procedures without understanding their purpose, you're likely a different personality type. The key insight is that your demand for purpose isn't perfectionism or being difficult. It's pattern recognition combined with future thinking. You see connections others miss, and you understand that actions taken without clear purpose often create more problems than they solve. Your brain is wired to optimize systems and improve outcomes, which makes it literally painful to participate in activities that seem designed to waste time and energy. When you understand this trait, you can stop apologizing for asking why and start recognizing it as one of your core strengths. The world needs people who question inefficient systems and push for meaningful improvement. Trait 3. You blend intelligence with emotional mastery. The third mistrait that proves you're a true INFJ is your ability to combine high intellectual capacity with high emotional intelligence. Most people assume these are mutually exclusive abilities. They think you're either the cold, analytical scientist or the emotional, feeling-based person who makes decisions with their heart instead of their head. This false dichotomy creates confusion when people encounter INFJs who can simultaneously analyze complex systems and understand the emotional undercurrents driving human behavior. Your brain doesn't separate logical thinking from emotional awareness. You process both types of information simultaneously and use them to create solutions that most people can't even conceptualize. Research in cognitive science shows that intelligence quotient and emotional quotient typically develop independently. Most highly intelligent people struggle with emotional awareness, while emotionally intelligent people often lack analytical depth. INFJs represent a statistical anomaly, where both capabilities develop to advanced levels within the same individual. This combination allows you to see solutions that account for everyone involved. While others debate whether to prioritize efficiency or employee satisfaction, you can design systems that optimize both. When teams get stuck choosing between logical decisions and maintaining relationships, you can find approaches that serve both needs without compromise. The problem is that most people can't comprehend someone having both abilities. They expect you to choose a side. Colleagues might trust your analytical skills, but dismiss your insights about team dynamics. Or they'll value your emotional awareness, but assume you can't handle complex technical problems. They literally cannot process that one person might excel at both logical analysis and emotional understanding. This creates a specific type of discomfort in others that you've probably experienced but couldn't explain. When you present solutions that address both the technical requirements and the human factors, people get uncomfortable. They can't categorize you, which makes them question their own limitations. If you can do both things they thought were impossible to combine, what does that say about their own capabilities? The workplace manifestation of this trait is particularly challenging. In technical environments, your emotional insights get dismissed as irrelevant soft skills. In people-focused environments, your analytical abilities get downplayed as overthinking. You end up being too emotional for the logical people and too logical for the emotional people. You might find yourself in meetings where you can simultaneously track the technical feasibility of a project and predict which personality conflicts will derail implementation. While everyone else focuses on either the technical specs or the team dynamics, you're seeing how both elements will interact over time. Your solutions address problems others haven't even recognized yet. This dual processing also shows up in how you read people. You can analyze someone's communication patterns while simultaneously understanding their emotional state. You notice the logical inconsistencies in their arguments and the fear driving those inconsistencies. Most people can do one or the other, but rarely both at the same time. The key insight is that this isn't about being smarter or more emotionally aware than others. It's about having a brain that processes information differently. Where most people have to choose between analytical thinking and emotional awareness, your cognitive architecture integrates both automatically. This integration allows you to see beneath appearances in ways that make others uncomfortable. You can understand the logical flaws in someone's position, while also recognizing the emotional needs driving their attachment to that position. You can predict how proposed changes will affect both efficiency metrics and team morale. When people encounter someone who can operate on both levels simultaneously, they often respond with suspicion or disbelief. They assume you must be manipulative or calculating because they can't imagine accessing both capabilities without conscious effort. They don't understand that for INFJs, separating logical analysis from emotional awareness would actually require more effort than integrating them. Understanding this trait helps explain why you often feel misunderstood in professional and personal relationships. You're not trying to be superior or show off multiple capabilities. You're simply processing information the way your brain naturally works, which happens to be different from how most people process information. Trait 4. You're called during chaos, then discarded. The fourth mistrait that proves you're a true INFJ is the predictable pattern of being desperately needed during crises, then completely ignored once the chaos subsides. This cycle happens so consistently that once you recognize it, you'll start seeing it everywhere in your relationships. When someone's life falls apart, when a workplace crisis erupts, when family drama reaches a breaking point, suddenly everyone remembers you exist. They call you for deep conversations about their problems. They seek your advice on complex emotional situations. They want your perspective on navigating difficult relationships or major life decisions. During these moments, you might think you finally found people who appreciate your depth and insight. The reason they turn to you during chaos is that INFJs have a unique ability to make meaning out of disorder. While most people get overwhelmed by complex problems with multiple variables, your brain excels at finding patterns within confusion. You can see how different elements of someone's crisis connect to each other. You understand the underlying emotional dynamics that created the situation, and you can map potential paths forward that others can't envision. You become invaluable during these moments because you can hold space for intense emotions while simultaneously helping people think through practical solutions. Most people can do one or the other, but not both. They either get swept up in the emotional chaos or they shut down emotionally to focus on logistics. You can process the emotional complexity while maintaining clear thinking about next steps. But here's where the pattern becomes painful. Once you help them restore order to their lives, once the immediate crisis passes and they feel stable again, they retreat back to surface-level interactions. The person who called you crying at midnight about their relationship problems suddenly becomes too busy to return your texts. The colleague who sought your advice during a major project crisis goes back to excluding you from casual workplace conversations. This creates a confusing cycle that leaves many INFJs questioning their own perceptions. You have these profound, vulnerable conversations with people during their worst moments, and you naturally assume this means you've developed a deeper connection. You expect that someone who shared their deepest fears with you will want to maintain that level of intimacy once things improve. The reality is that most people can only access emotional depth during tragedy or crisis. When their lives are functioning normally, they retreat to safer, more superficial ways of connecting. They're not comfortable with the level of vulnerability that comes naturally to you. They needed your emotional accessibility during their crisis, but they can't reciprocate that accessibility when they're not in desperate need. This pattern explains why you might have experienced the phenomenon of people ghosting you after you help them through difficult situations. They're not ungrateful or manipulative. They simply don't have the emotional capacity to maintain the depth of connection that you provided during their emergency. Once they're back to baseline, that level of emotional intimacy feels threatening or overwhelming to them. The workplace version of this pattern is particularly frustrating. You might be brought in to help resolve team conflicts or navigate organizational changes because of your ability to understand multiple perspectives and find solutions that work for everyone. But once the crisis passes, you're often pushed back to the sidelines, while credit goes to people who contributed far less to the actual resolution. Understanding this trait helps you set more realistic expectations for relationships. When someone reaches out during a crisis, you can choose to help them, while recognizing that this probably won't translate into ongoing, deeper connection. You can appreciate these moments for what they are, temporary opportunities to use your gifts, without expecting them to fundamentally change the relationship dynamic. The key insight is that your constant emotional availability is unusual. Most people can only access that depth during specific circumstances, while you operate from that level consistently. Recognizing this difference helps you understand why relationships often feel unbalanced, and why people seem to disappear just when you thought you'd connected with them. Trait 5. You crave research while others avoid information. The fifth mistrait that proves you're a true INFJ is your compulsive need to research and understand everything, while most people actively avoid seeking out information. This isn't about being curious or enjoying learning. It's about having a brain that feels genuinely uncomfortable operating without comprehensive understanding of whatever situation you're facing. Most people hate research. They find it tedious, overwhelming, or unnecessary. They're content to make decisions based on limited information, or to follow advice without understanding the reasoning behind it. They'll buy products without reading reviews, accept job offers without researching company culture, or form opinions based on headlines without reading the actual articles. INFJs operate from the opposite framework. Before making any decision, your brain automatically starts gathering information from multiple sources. You read the reviews, the counter-reviews, and the responses to the counter-reviews. You research the company's financial history, leadership changes, and employee satisfaction ratings. You trace claims back to their original sources and cross-reference them with other data points. This research drive isn't perfectionism or anxiety. It's pattern recognition in action. Your brain understands that current decisions create future consequences, and you can't predict those consequences without understanding the full context of what you're dealing with. You research because incomplete information feels like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. The depth of your research often surprises people. While others might Google something quickly and move on, you'll spend hours following information threads to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, who was involved, what the long-term implications might be, and how it connects to other patterns you've observed. This trait manifests in daily life in ways that seem excessive to others. You might research a restaurant's menu, reviews, parking situation, and neighborhood before suggesting it for dinner. You'll investigate a potential doctor's education, experience, patient reviews, and hospital affiliations before scheduling an appointment. You'll study a movie's director, cast, reviews, and underlying themes before deciding whether to watch it. People around you often get frustrated with this research intensity. They want quick decisions and immediate action. They interpret your need to gather information as indecision or overthinking. They can't understand why you need to know so much before moving forward with something they consider simple or straightforward. The workplace manifestation of this trait can create both advantages and tensions. You become the person others turn to when they need comprehensive information about complex topics. You can provide context and background that helps teams make better decisions. But you might also slow down processes when others want to move quickly based on limited data. Your research abilities feed into all the other INFJ traits we've discussed. The emotional overflow trait is enhanced by your research into psychology and human behavior. Your demand for purpose is supported by your research into systems and outcomes. Your combination of intelligence and emotional mastery is strengthened by your research into both technical subjects and interpersonal dynamics. Your ability to help during chaos is powered by your research into crisis management and problem-solving approaches. The key insight is that your research drive isn't about being a perfectionist or procrastinator. It's about having a brain that processes information systematically and understands that better information leads to better outcomes. You research because your pattern recognition abilities work best when they have comprehensive data to work with. These 5 traits work together to create the complete INFJ experience. Your emotional overflow provides the data. Your demand for purpose provides the direction. Your intelligence-emotion combination provides the processing power. Your crisis then discard pattern provides the relationship context. And your research drive provides the comprehensive understanding that makes everything else possible. These aren't limitations to overcome. They're strategic advantages that allow you to see patterns, solve problems, and understand people in ways most others simply cannot. Embrace these traits as the superpowers they actually are. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.